But for now, we're going to go back to the finals. And last night, look, Draymond is the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, I don't know how many topics he's given us over the past week and a half, but it seems like we're doing a Draymond topic, at least one every day. And so this one is not based on something Draymond said, but it's based on something that was said about Draymond or to Draymond. And it is the Celtics fans, Rob. And yesterday, now we know all the, trouble Draymond got into in game 2 with Celtics players. He's just laying on them and hitting them here and there and instigating and all of that. And so you knew when he went to Boston, it was going to be crazy. And indeed it was. And almost right from the beginning, they were chanting F Draymond Green, expletive Draymond Green. And Steve Kerr was asked about it. He said, classy, sarcastically, obviously. Draymond himself, hey, they did what they supposed to do. He actually handled it pretty well. And Clay said, hey, we've played in front of rude fans before. That shows no class and stuff like that. So, Rob, you were adamant that you wanted to say something about the fans in Boston. And are you coming to Draymond Green's defense?
Chris, only from this standpoint. We know how passionate and what a great sports town Boston is, okay? They live and they breathe. I've been going to that town forever since I started covering the NBA. Been to Fenway Park a million times. I love the ballpark and how much passion. Obviously, the Patriots. I've been to Foxborough. I've been for everything, okay? They got the 4 teams. They love hockey as much as they love football and baseball and basketball. It's a big sports town. But it's a bad sports town because the passion that they have is ill-guided and ill-fated in that they are not classy. You can be passionate about your team. You can give the other team a hard time. But, Chris, Boston just is
You think they crossed the line yesterday?
I think they've crossed the line as a city for a number of occasions. This is milder. This is milder than what they've done, but I say it goes with a history of what these sports fans, and obviously it's not all of them. I just want to give you a couple of examples of things that have happened in that town. And there was one that was really ugly when the Washington Capitals beat the Bruins, Chris, in the playoffs, and the Bruins were the defending Stanley Cup champs. And Joel Ward was a black player for the Capitals. This was, what was this, 20, I just don't have the date in front of me. It was like 2017, 2016.
Okay.
Something like that. Not that long ago.
Just a few years ago, right?
Yeah, just a few years ago. And after Joel Ward sent them home, Chris, he had an overtime game-winning goal in the 7th game, right? A number of fans just went off calling him I don't even want to say the words, but just calling him all kinds of terrible, terrible names because he scored the goal. Not that he beat them and he wanted to rip on the guy or you're mad at him, but racist stuff, right? And we know in the NHL, there's only a handful of black players and they're all from, just about all of them are from Canada, right? Not even from the United States. And then we know in 2017, it was Adam Jones, who played for the Orioles, who they're throwing banana peels at him. They're calling him all kinds of racist names in the outfield in Fenway Park. So we've seen that. CeCe Sabathia, who's a guy I've known for a long time, upstanding guy who is a real person, not in making up stuff or trying to, up somebody by piling on. Said he played in the big leagues for 15, 16 years. Said there's only one stadium he'd ever been called the N-word, Fenway Park, in his entire career.
Right.
So there's a pattern here, and obviously it didn't get to this level, Chris. But Boston is an issue up there, and I don't know what it is or why they go overboard more so than any. Chris, you've covered games all over, right? For how many years? 30 years.
Almost 30. Well, basically, yeah, close to
Right?
30 years
30
as
years.
far as professional, yeah.
It doesn't happen everywhere, does it? It doesn't happen everywhere.
I mean, I have not experienced, I haven't had any bad experiences in Boston, but you're right. I mean, the history is the history. Look, Boston has been more racist than most northern cities. Let's just call it what it is. Bill Russell, the greatest winner in the history of professional sports,
ask him,
was treated terribly there by fans that cheered him during the game, but he was treated horribly in real life there. And so I hear what you're saying. I mean, they just can't get past that right now. Thankfully, it didn't go there last night.
Right. It didn't go to that extreme. My God.
And I wasn't fearing that. I wasn't thinking that it would. But, you never know. And thankfully, it didn't. As far as last night, look, remember, Rob, was it last year when the Knicks fans were chanting the same thing about Trae Young? Now, me personally, do I want to hear a crowd doing that? No. And for Draymond, and his wife complained because on social media because his little son was there, who was also on the podium with Draymond. Now, Draymond did curse in front of his son when he said that I played like, crap. He used another word, and his son was right there. But his wife brought up, their son had to hear that and all this. Rob G, do you have her exact tweet? See if you can get her tweet and see, let me know when you get it and we can read what she said. But I get that the little kid, I don't know how old he is. He looks, 6 years old, something like that. He's not going to understand. And now it's not the fans, responsibility to be nice just because the little boy is there. But I do think that was probably a terrible experience, although he looked fine on the podium after the game. Maybe he didn't even understand everything going on. But I'm sure if he did understand it, it wasn't fun for the little boy.
And you know what's weird?
I'd hate to hear that chanted about my dad. But that's something where if you're Draymond, they might not have expected that exactly. But you knew it was maybe going to be hostile. You knew they were going to be going after you. You knew they were going to be rude and shouting things that were negative about you. You might not want to bring your young boy to something like that. Just knowing, hey, it's going to be ugly. I don't really want him to see that.
I remember vividly the 1986 World Series. Mets and Red Sox, Chris. Classic 7-game series. The Bill Buckner ball going through his legs in Game 6. Mets down 3-0 in Game 7. They come back, they win at Shea Stadium in the whole 9 yards. The Red Sox fans were getting on Darryl Strawberry, right? They giving him a hard time. But guess what they were chanting?
What?
Darryl, do you like they were razzing him, Chris?
Right.
But it was in that vein.
Right.
What has happened to where we're going now to these incidents over the last few years is what I'm saying. Like,
well, here's Rob. Here's I'll answer that in a moment.
Yeah, help me
here's
out.
The tweet from Draymond's wife.
Well, she posted on an Instagram story, which was then tweeted, which she has since deleted, but everything on the internet lives on.
Right.
So we found it.
Why are you even deleting stuff? Like,
Exactly.
It's not going to stay up there.
So here's what she said. It's pretty lengthy. Tough loss tonight, but in no way, shape, or form should fans be allowed to chant obscenities at players. F you, Draymond, and calling their dad a B word, among other things. Are they not human? Is someone standing at your job saying off the wall things to you? The NBA has the audacity to have a whole code of conduct card at every seat about fans and their behavior and how they could be ejected from a game or banned, but a whole crowd/section numbers people get to chant F you Draymond or call him a BF MFer and nothing. Like that's okay, and tag Draymond in the tweet.
Yeah. Now, did she say anything about his son being there?
She added later on in a separate post, my kids were at the game tonight. No, excuse me. Warrior fans would never. My kids were at the game tonight hearing that mess. Very disgusting of you little Celtics fans. Shameful.
Well, Warriors fans, if they call LeBron James some stuff too. So
What they
I'm
call
not gonna
him?
curse words.
Yeah, okay. I'm just
Nothing
asking.
racist, but curse words.
Yeah, yeah. And we're not all
right.
saying that it's only racist stuff. You know what I mean? We're saying that.
Well, that's the question. Like to your point, Rob. Look, I think what this is, because I don't remember, Rob, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember years ago, 10 years ago, chants like this.
I agree with you.
You, Draymond.
Not as a crowd.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't. I'm with you like that. There might be a handful of people or something. You know what I mean? A couple of drunk guys in a section, Chris. But a stadium where you can hear it.
Yeah, I don't recall stuff like that. Now, I'll tell you where I think it comes from, Rob. I just think that we as a society have gotten a lot more lenient with stuff like that. Like, I mean, in a lot of music, it's obviously you're hearing curse words and stuff like that. Not on the radio, but, when you buy the albums and stuff or download it, you hear it. But also, Rob, look at a lot of the players in their press conferences. Look at how many are cursing, like, right? You see a lot of that. It's not even viewed as a big deal anymore when the player uses a curse word. You didn't see that a few years ago. I don't know.
No, because there was always, and I agree with you on that, because you always realize you're in front of a microphone and a camera, and people are going to be listening, and you want to represent your organization, Chris. That's once again about representing your organization and being professional. Everybody has a private life,
and your brand.
Your brand.
A lot of times that could have hurt you, right?
Right,
but I don't think people hold it. I don't know that organizations or marketers or companies are holding it against people. Now, like I said, I just think as a society, there's certain types of language that are more accepted now. I mean, let's just keep it real. Not to get too political. Look at the political discourse today. Let's look at the way Donald Trump spoke as president. And look at the way people spoke about him. Athletes spoke about him even as he was president. So I just think that as a society now, man, it's like the gloves verbally, not completely verbally, but, to some degree, the gloves are off verbally and people are just in various walks of life. It's more common and more accepted to hear people cursing.
I'll say this. I've always called Atlanta the worst sports town in America. And I'm just talking, this, Chris.
Because of the lack of enthusiasm.
Yes, right. And because there's so many transient people from all over. There are people from Atlanta, but they're outnumbered because a lot of people find Atlanta as a destination and a place to come from all over. So they have allegiances. When the Knicks, you've covered the Knicks down there.
Fan, right.
New Yorkers live there in Atlanta, and it's loud. And the Lakers come and whatever. Certain teams, and it's just as loud for them. But I'll say Boston has a terrible reputation, and I love passionate fans, but they're very disrespectful and oftentimes racist. I think it's unacceptable.
That's where I have a problem with it,
right?
The racism. Because Rob, Detroit, those fans used to, when I would go there to cover games against the Pistons with teams I was covering, the Knicks, the Nets, the Cavs, Detroit's fans were bad. Indiana has some history of racism among their crowd and fans too. But I don't like. What do you think is the worst?
Do you think Boston's the worst, or can you give me another place?
It hasn't been the worst that I've experienced.
Where have you been? Do you have one?
I would say Detroit was the worst that I experienced.
Okay.
And it wasn't like racist or nothing.
No, just bad behavior.
Yeah. But nothing, it wasn't anything where I was like, man, this is, it wasn't like beyond the pale, but it was bad. But as long as they don't go racist, and there's a line even beyond racism, Rob, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't, me, I don't curse like that, so I don't like to hear it. There are kids there. Draymond's kids were there, among others. They don't
women
need to hear
there
that,
who don't want to hear that.
Right, but it, like I said, the Garden did it. Did you feel this way about the Garden? Now, obviously, they don't have the racist history that Boston
Right.
has. But
The problem is, Chris, and you just said it. It's because of Boston's history, so you pile
Right.
that on top of what they have. And that doesn't excuse the Knicks fans, right, for using that kind of language. It's classless. But when you have the other thing and it keeps happening, you got to say to yourself, why is this fan base doing this? And why do people in Boston accept this?
the Boston sports fans go too far in chanting F you Draymond or F Draymond Green. And just in general, Rob, we've talked about it, the Boston sports history. What do you think? The fans, and even just in general, why fans, are they getting worse as far as the language they're using with players? Your turn.
No doubt in public. Van in Virginia Beach, you're on the Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What up, Van?
Hey, guys, by way of the Boogie Down.
Yes, sir.
Boogie down
All right.
Bronx. That's right.
Hey, listen, real quick. You remember when Kyrie Irving when he flipped the bird? I believe it was in Boston when they was playing in the early part of the series, and his pockets got hit hard for flipping the bird. And so my feeling is, it needs to be it can't be a two-way street. It's got to be the same deal on both sides. There's people can chant, like you said, they can call his name, ad infinitum, like they did Darryl Strawberry.
Right, exactly.
But the arenas should, put up on the big board or whatever. You can chant. We're not trying to stop your fun as fans, but no profanities. And then make it known that they're not going to tolerate it.
Okay, I don't disagree with that. I don't think that's a bad idea. I would love it. But what if the whole arena is chanting that? What can you do?
Well,
I mean, beyond just stopping the game, what would you do?
Could you empty the stadium?
Well, no, I mean, of course, that's taking it all the way to the absurd level. But the point is, let them know that it's not pleasing, and it's not, and they don't want to tolerate
I get
it.
that, and I would like that.
No, I know.
But
Chris
my
is saying,
point
what's
is,
the
you know what I'm
solution?
saying?
How
What
do
are you gonna do?
How do you police a crowd
Yeah.
of that size?
Right.
Because that's what
yeah.
Rob and I say. Look, let's not be Pollyannish here. 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, individual fans were cursing at players, right? But it wasn't a whole crowd doing
Right.
it, like
It
the
wasn't-
wave or something. And that's what I'm asking. If a whole crowd chants that, what are you going to do? I mean, Trey Young had fun with it in New York, and it became kind of like, this is, you know what I mean?
Reggie
He's the new
Miller,
Reggie Miller,
right. It was kind of built as a fun story. It was fun,
right?
But
I
that
don't like it.
Profanity
is it the worst thing in the world? I mean, I just wouldn't like it for kids to be there.
Yeah, and kids are there and kids are watching. I mean, let's
Right.
just be honest. Chris, you watched games when you were a kid, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
I watched every
And
game
you're
I
right.
could.
If I had heard something like that, I would have been like, wow.
Mike in Orlando, you're on the Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What up, Mike?
Like I was telling the guy, I work at a grocery store. For his wife to say that we don't deal with it, I work in the meat department at Winn-Dixie, and we are always, the customers come at us, F this, F that, blah, blah, blah.
Really? Why? Because they don't like the cut of meat, or they don't like that you don't have something?
They don't like the cut of meat, or they don't like that,
So
we
that
didn't have
Peyton
this.
Manning commercial is true. When he would go to people's work and
yell at them.
Yell at them. I'm surprised by that. I wouldn't have thought. I mean, look, I get where even if he experiences it, most people don't. All right, experience that at their workplace. But I think what Draymond's wife has to understand, and players have said it too, Rob, you're in a different type of job. Let's keep it real.
No. It is different.
We say it all the time. People in the
We're
public
in a different
eye.
job. We get criticized.
Does your average person who people don't know publicly get the criticism even we get? No.
Chris, if I
But you
showed
understand it comes with it.
in the old days when I used to get letters for columns that I wrote in Detroit and whatnot, when I became a columnist.
And I'm sure a lot of them were racist.
Most, I should say, not all, most were racist, straight up racist.
Yeah.
And it was funny when they used to take my column and put it in other newspapers around the country. You used to syndicate it, kind of take it, but you wouldn't have your picture with it. So in those column situations, Chris, I never got any racist if it was in the Seattle Post Intelligentsia.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
They probably didn't think you were black.
Because they didn't.
'Cause
Exactly.
there weren't many black columns.
Exactly. And it was always interesting to me. But when there was a picture and they
Right.
knew you were black, they immediately went there. Immediately.
Yep. I got similar stuff when I did write columns, NBA columns, even when I was at the Akron Beacon Journal. Racist stuff.
Racist.
And, yep.
And it would be with their home address, Chris.
Oh,
their
yeah.
name, everything.